Chapter 30. Chicken and Pacific Rooster. Reporter Persitsky was busily preparing for the bicentennial of the great mathematician Isaac Newton. "I'm taking Newton," he declared. "Just give me the space." "Listen, Persitsky," the secretary cautioned. "Handle Newton with some class. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Just don't let it turn out like the Lomonosov thing. Red Doctor ran a piece on Lomonosov's great-great-granddaughter, a young pioneer, and we. That's not my fault. You should have given such an important job to that redhead Ivanov. Blame yourselves. So, what are you bringing to the table?" "Do you mean what? An article from the main science directorate. I've got connections there that Ivanov can only dream of. We'll grab a biography from Brockhaus, but the portrait will be something special. I spotted this amazing engraving at International Books. I just need an advance. I'm off to chase Newton." "Aren't we going to photograph Newton?" asked the photographer, who'd arrived near the end of the conversation. Persitsky made a warning gesture, signaling, "Calm down, watch what I'm about to do." The entire secretariat tensed up. "What, you haven't photographed Newton yet?" Persitsky pounced on the photographer. The photographer, just in case, started to defend himself. "You try catching him," he said proudly. "A good photographer would have caught him," Persitsky shouted. "So should I photograph him or not?" "Of course you should. Hurry. Everyone from every paper is probably already there." The photographer hoisted his camera and clattering tripod onto his shoulders. "He's probably at Goshvemashner's sewing machine factory. Don't forget Newton, Isaac. I can't remember his middle name. Get it done by the anniversary. And please not at work. All your photos are of people sitting at desks reading papers. Get him on the move or with his family. When I get foreign-made film, then I'll shoot on the move. Well, I'm off. Hurry, it's already past 5. The photographer left to photograph the great mathematician for his bicentennial, and the staff burst into laughter. In the midst of the merriment, Stepa from Science and Life walked in. Trailing behind him was a plump woman. "Listen, Persitsky," Stepa said. "This citizen has come to see you on business. Come here, citizen. This comrade will explain everything to you." Stepa, smirking, ran off. "Well," Persitsky asked, "what can I do for you?" Madame Gritsitseva raised soulful eyes to the reporter and silently handed him a piece of paper. "Okay," Persitsky said, "hit by a horse, escaped with a slight fright. What's the problem?" "Address," the widow pleaded. "Could I get an address?" "Whose address?" "Oh, Bender's." "How would I know?" "But the comrade said you knew." "I don't know anything. Go to the address bureau." "Maybe you could remember, comrade. He wears yellow shoes." "I wear yellow shoes myself. There are 200,000 people in Moscow who wear yellow shoes. Do you need their addresses? If so, I'll drop everything and take on the task. In 6 months, you'll know all the addresses. I'm busy, citizen." But the widow, who had developed a great respect for Persitsky, followed him down the corridor, her starched petticoat rustling, repeating her requests. "That jerk Stepa," Persitsky thought. "I'll sick the perpetual motion inventor on him. He'll be jumping then." "What can I do?" Persitsky asked irritably, stopping in front of the widow. "How would I know the address of Citizen O. Bender? Am I the horse that ran him over, or the cab driver he hit in front of me?" The widow responded with a vague rumble, in which one could only make out "comrade" and "I begged you." The activities at the House of the People had already ended. The offices and corridors were deserted. Somewhere, a typewriter was still clacking away. "Pardon me, madam, you can see I'm busy." With these words, Persitsky disappeared into the restroom. After lingering there for 10 minutes, he emerged cheerfully. Gritsitseva was patiently shaking her skirts at the corner of 2 corridors. As Persitsky approached, she began to speak again. The reporter lost his temper. "Listen, lady," he said, "I'll tell you where your O-Bender is. Go straight down the corridor, then turn right and go straight again. There will be a door there. Ask Cherepennikov, he should know." And Persitsky disappeared so quickly that the starched widow didn't have time to get any more information. Straightening her skirts, Madame Gritsitseva went down the corridor. Corridors of the House of the People were so long and narrow that those walking through them involuntarily quickened their pace. One could tell how far someone had walked by their gait. If they were walking at a slightly accelerated pace, it meant their journey had just begun. Those who had passed 2 or 3 corridors were moving at a medium trot, and sometimes you could see a person running at full speed. They were in the 5th corridor stage. A citizen who had covered 8 corridors could easily compete in speed with a bird, a racehorse, or the world champion runner Nurmi. Turning right, Madame Gritsitseva began to run. The parquet floor creaked. Brunette in a blue vest and crimson shoes was walking quickly towards her. From Ostap's face, it was clear that his visit to the House of the People at such a late hour was due to extraordinary matters of the concession. Obviously, the technical director's plans did not include a meeting with his beloved. Upon seeing the widow, Bender turned, and without looking back, walked back along the wall. "Comrade Bender," the widow cried out in delight, "where are you going?" The great schemer increased his pace. The widow sped up too. "Wait, let me tell you something," she pleaded. But her words didn't reach Ostap's ears. The wind was already singing and whistling in his ears. He was racing through the fourth corridor, skipping flights of internal iron stairs. He left his beloved with only an echo, which repeated the sounds of the stairwell for a long time. "Well, thanks," Ostap muttered, sitting on the fifth floor. "She found the perfect time for a rendezvous. Who sent this sultry dame here? It's time to liquidate the Moscow branch of the concession, or some lone hussar with a motor might come after me." At this time, Madame Gritsitseva, separated from Ostap by 3 floors, 1,000 doors, and a dozen corridors, wiped her flushed face with the hem of her petticoat and began her search. First, she wanted to find her husband as soon as possible and talk to him. Dim lights came on in the corridors. All the lights, all the corridors, and all the doors were the same. The widow felt strange. She wanted to leave. Obeying the corridor progression, she raced with ever-increasing speed. After half an hour, it was impossible for her to stop. The doors of presidiums, secretariats, local committees, organizational departments, and editorial offices flew past on both sides of her bulky body. On the move, her iron skirts overturned urns for cigarette butts. With a saucepan-like noise, the urns rolled in her wake. Whirlwinds and eddies formed in the corners of the corridors. Transoms that had come unlatched slammed shut. Pointing fingers, painted on the walls with stencils, stabbed at the poor traveler. Finally, Gritsitseva reached the landing of an internal staircase. It was dark there, but the widow overcame her fear, ran down the stairs and pulled the glass door. The door was locked. The widow rushed back, but the door she had just passed through was also closed by someone's caring hand. In Moscow, they love to lock doors. Thousands of front entrances are boarded up from the inside, and hundreds of thousands of citizens make their way to their apartments through the back door. Year 1918 has long passed. The concept of a raid on an apartment has become vague. The house-to-house security organized by residents for safety has disappeared. The problem of street traffic is being solved. Huge power plants are being built. The greatest scientific discoveries are being made. But there is no one who would devote his life to solving the problem of closed doors. Who is the person who will solve the riddle of cinemas, theaters, and circuses? 3,000 people must enter the circus in 10 minutes through a single door, open only in one half. The other 10 doors, specially adapted to let large crowds of people through, are closed. Who knows why they're closed? Perhaps 20 years ago, a learned donkey was stolen from the circus stable, and since then the management, in fear, has walled up the convenient entrances and exits. Or maybe, once upon a time, a draft caught a famous aerialist, and the closed doors are just an echo of the scandal caused by the aerialist. In theaters and cinemas, the public is released in small groups, supposedly to avoid congestion. Avoiding congestion is very easy. Just open the exits that are available in abundance. But instead, the administration acts by force. Ushers, linking arms, form a living barrier and thus keep the public under siege for at least half an hour. And the doors, the cherished doors, closed back in the days of Paul I, are still closed today. 15,000 football fans, excited by the spirited game of the Moscow national team, are forced to push their way to the tram through a gap so narrow that one lightly armed warrior could hold back 40,000 barbarians, reinforced by 2 siege towers. Sports stadium has no roof, but there are several gates. All of them are closed. Only a wicket gate is open. You can only get out by breaking down the gate. After each major competition, they are broken, but in the care of fulfilling the sacred tradition, they are carefully restored and tightly locked each time. If there is no way to hang a door, this happens when there is nothing to hang it on. Hidden doors of all kinds are put into use. Barriers, sawhorses, turned-over benches, prohibitory inscriptions, ropes. Barriers are widely used in institutions. They block access to the necessary employee. The visitor, like a tiger, walks along the barrier, trying to draw attention to himself with signs. This does not always succeed, and maybe the visitor has brought a useful invention, or maybe he just wants to pay his income tax, but the barrier prevented it. The invention remained unknown, and the tax remained unpaid. A sawhorse is used on the street. It is placed in the spring on a noisy street, supposedly to protect the sidewalk being repaired, and instantly the noisy street becomes deserted. Passers-by seep into the places they need to go through other streets. They have to walk an extra kilometer every day, but light-winged hope does not leave them. Summer passes, the leaf withers, but the sawhorse is still standing. The repair has not been done, and the street is deserted. Turned-over garden benches block the entrances to Moscow squares, which, due to the outrageous negligence of the builders, are not equipped with strong gates. A whole book could be written about prohibitory inscriptions, but this is not part of the author's plans right now. These inscriptions are of 2 kinds, direct and indirect. Direct ones include entrance prohibited, no entrance for unauthorized persons, and no thoroughfare. Such inscriptions are sometimes posted on the doors of institutions, especially those heavily visited by the public. Indirect inscriptions are the most destructive. They do not prohibit entry, but few dare to take advantage of the right of entry. Here they are, these shameful inscriptions. Do not enter without reporting, no reception. Your visit disturbs a busy person, and save other people's time. where it is impossible to put up a barrier or a sawhorse, turn over a bench, or post a prohibitory inscription. There, ropes are stretched. They are stretched on inspiration in the most unexpected places. If they are stretched at the height of a person's chest, the matter is limited to a slight fright and some nervous laughter. Stretched at the height of the ankle, a rope can cripple a person. Hell with doors to hell with queues at theater entrances. Allow us to enter without reporting. Allow us to leave the football field with an intact spine. I beg you to remove the sawhorse placed by the negligent building manager near his wrecked panel. Away with the overturned benches. Put them back in place. It is pleasant to sit in the square precisely at night. The air is clean and smart thoughts come to mind. Madame Gritsitsaeva was not thinking about this as she sat on the stairs by the locked glass door in the very middle of the house of the people. She was thinking about her widow's fate, dozing off occasionally and waiting for morning. From the illuminated corridor, through the glass door, the yellow light of electric lamps poured onto the widow. Ashen morning light penetrated through the windows of the stairwell. It was the quiet hour when the morning is still young and pure. At this hour, Gritsitsaeva heard footsteps in the corridor. The widow perked up and pressed herself against the glass. At the end of the corridor, a blue vest flashed. Crimson shoes were dusted with plaster. The windy son of a Turkish subject, shaking a speck of dust off his jacket, approached the glass door. "Gopher," the widow called. "Go, Gopher." She breathed on the glass with inexpressible tenderness. The glass fogged up, covered with iridescent spots. Blue and crimson phantoms shone in the fog in rainbows. Ostap heard the widow's cooing. He scratched his back and turned his head anxiously. Another second, and he would have disappeared around the corner. With a groan of Comrade Bender, the poor spouse drummed on the glass. The great schemer turned around. "Ah," he said, seeing that he was separated from the widow by a closed door. "You're here too." "Here, here," the widow repeated joyfully. "Embrace me, my joy, we haven't seen each other for so long," the technical director invited. The widow fussed. She jumped behind the door like a siskin in a cage. The skirts, quieted down overnight, rattled again. Ostap opened his arms. "Why aren't you coming, my Guinean chicken? Your Pacific rooster is so tired from the meeting of the small council of people's commissars." The widow lacked imagination. "Gopher," she said for the 5th time, "open the door for me, Comrade Bender." "Quiet girl, modesty adorns a woman. What's with all the jumping?" The widow was tormented. "Why are you suffering?" Ostap asked. "What's stopping you from living? You left yourself and now you're asking." And the widow cried. "Wipe your eyes, citizen. Each of your tears is a molecule in space." "I waited and waited, closed the shop. I followed you, Comrade Bender." "Well, how do you like living on the stairs now? Is there a draft?" The widow began to boil slowly, like a large monastery samovar. "Adulterer," she said, shuddering. Ostap still had some free time. He snapped his fingers and, swaying rhythmically, quietly sang. "A particle of the devil is sometimes enclosed in us, and the power of female charms gives birth to a fire in the chest. May you burst," the widow wished at the end of the dance. "You stole the bracelet, my husband's gift, and why did you take the chair?" "You seem to be getting personal," Ostap remarked coldly. Stole," the widow insisted. "Listen, girl, mark it on your nose that Ostap Bender never stole anything." "Who took the sieve?" "Ah, the sieve from your liquid fund, and you consider that theft. In that case, our views on life are diametrically opposed." "Carried it away," the widow cooed. "So if a young, healthy man borrowed a kitchen utensil that a provincial grandmother didn't need, due to her poor health, then he's a thief. Is that what you're telling me?" Thief. "In that case, we'll have to part ways. I agree to a divorce." The widow rushed at the door. The glass trembled. Ostap realized it was time to leave. "No time for hugs," he said. "Farewell, my love. We parted like ships in the night." "Help!" the widow shouted. But Ostap was already at the end of the corridor. He stood on the windowsill, jumped heavily onto the ground, damp after the night rain, and disappeared into the glittering physical culture gardens. The awakened watchman stumbled upon the widow's cries. He released the prisoner, threatening a fine.